Hello, Randy Orr with Berkshire Hathaway, team leader at the Orr Group. I want to talk to you today about the most common question and concern that I hear from the buyer in a transaction. And that concern and question is typically about the earnest money deposit. That's the initial check that the buyer writes when making an offer on a property. Well, the good news is that the buyer has many built-in protection instruments in our current purchase contract. I've been in the business over 20 years, and 20 years ago we used to operate with something called a passive removal of contingencies. Don't worry about that, because today we have what's called an active removal of contingencies. So what I'm talking about is, let's walk through the mechanics of this writing of the check. The check is held uncashed by the agent writing the offer for you. Once you have an accepted offer, that check is then forwarded within a certain period of time to an escrow company. That escrow company will cash the check, which is typically about 3% of the purchase price. What happens with that money? It's held by the neutral third party, the escrow company, until all of the buyer contingencies are satisfied. So what are those contingencies? You, the buyer, have a set of contingencies typically defaulting to 17 days or 21 days for the loan contingency. The loan contingency does run longer than the other sets of contingencies. So what does that mean for you, the buyer, and your money with escrow relative to that contingency period? You have 17 days to remove the initial set of contingencies, for example, property condition. You have the right to inspect the property, be sure that the property meets your criteria for being acceptable to purchase. Once you are comfortable with the condition of the property, you will then actually sign a document removing that contingency. So, until all contingencies are removed in writing, this is our active method of removal of contingencies, the standard of every purchase contract in the state of California. Until you sign and approve the removal of all those contingencies, your earnest money is allowed to be refunded to you, less a few very nominal costs incurred by the escrow company, typically $100 or $50 for some minimal processing fees. This is subject to each individual escrow company. So let's take an $800,000 purchase, for example. You would typically write a check for about $24,000 held by your agent until the offer is accepted. It then goes to escrow, gets cashed. You have 17 days and 21 days to do your due diligence. If the due diligence is not to your approval, you do not sign the removal of contingencies. You actually sign a cancellation instruction, and you are entitled to your earnest money to be refunded. So today, the buyer's earnest money deposit is considered relatively safe, assuming you're working with a competent agent and a trustworthy and accredited escrow company. Randy Orr with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, team leader at the Orr Group, changing lives one home at a time.